We've got a lot of news this week. I mean, Garcelle Beauvais has been doing some interviews because she's promoting I believe, another production that she's doing, like a movie production. And then we've got the Salt Lake City ladies who did that big Us Weekly cover story. And I've got more information from the interviews that they did as more has been released. We've also got more breakups and possible hookups, okay, from unexpected places, crossovers from different shows. Summer House meets Southern Hospitality and possibly Southern Charm as well. So we'll see what's going on there. And for recaps of all the shows that are going on Bravo right now, head over to my Patreon, patreon.com/Bravo and Botox. You can do a monthly subscription, a yearly, or just buy individual episodes. Enjoy today's news. Welcome to the Bravo Papers, a safe space for all us Bravo fans who love to analyze, deconstruct, and talk about our favorite Bravo shows ad nauseum. So join me, Bravo and Botox, and we'll catch up on all the Bravo news and read way too much into our favorite shows and Bravo celebrities. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bravo Papers, Bravo Weekly News, here with your host, Emily, also known as Bravo and Botox. Hope you are having a fantastic week, or that you've had a fantastic week, I should say, because it's Saturday now. And, I'm over here in the Greater Toronto area celebrating as the Blue Jays are doing amazing and just won their first game of the World Series. No shade to any LA people who are listening, but I'm a Toronto person. Jays haven't been in the World Series since I was I think I was in grade 3 or 4 the last time. So it's a pretty big deal. And I got to say, there's a lot of energy around around this area, and everyone's excited. So yeah, it's an exciting week. And you do not come here to hear about sports. I am aware of that. Okay. I am aware of this fact, but I just had to, give the Jays a shout out. All right. I just have to. All right. So let's get into some Bravo news. The breakups are breakupping. Okay. Remember last week I talked about, what's her name? Olivia from Southern Charm and Ariana Bierman. They're both going through breakups. And now we have another breakup from the world of a show that, hasn't been on in a long time, which is Shahs of Sunset. Although they are kind of going to be coming back because we're going to be getting like the Valley, the Valley Persian version. I don't know what they're calling it. They had a name. It might have even been like Persian style or something. I can't remember. Okay, I have to go back to it. But Shahs of Sunset, Mercedes MJ Javid files for divorce from husband Tommy Fate after 7 years of marriage, which is it Fate or Fight? Sorry, it's Feight. Okay. Either way, doesn't matter. The point is that they're getting divorced. So they are citing irreconcilable differences, which obviously doesn't tell us very much. They've been married for 7 years. They have a son, Shams, who, if you're a Shahs fan, which I was a big Shahs fan, you'll remember that she named him after her deceased father. And yeah, so she is seeking, I think, full primary custody of Shams. And they filed for separation on October 17th. So, very recently. And, fans are kind of speculating, like, again, we don't know exactly what happened, but there have been some clues, okay, via the Instagram. So on MJ's Instagram, one clue is that she has not been posting with him for a while, so he hasn't really been present on her feed. And she's had kind of like some cryptic posts. Like she had one that was like, embrace like changes and growth in life, like something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but one of those kind of like quotes that is like read between the lines, everybody. So yeah, so she, and most notably, she's been posting not with him. So that's always a clue. So it seems like maybe something is going on. Now, I will say with this Valley show coming back and her being on that, it sounds like we will at least get some insight into this from there. I'm sure this is going to be obviously a storyline and the divorce will be a storyline and we'll get more details about it then. But I have to say that whatever you feel about MJ, because I know she is a controversial Bravo celebrity and she is one that a lot of people don't like, a lot of people do like, etc. I have to say this is a sad one. I always liked this couple. Like they just they seemed like a good couple. It seemed like such a win for MJ. Like if you were somebody who watched the show, for her to find like, 'cause she always had a lot of issues with like body image and stuff like that. And not that like our body image should, revolve around like a man's gaze or anything like that. But it just did seem like, he really like boosted her confidence or was like a supportive partner. And he always was like, just seemed so into her and her into him. And they had this like fiery chemistry and all that kind of stuff. So, and they seem to have a good relationship and yeah, so it really, and again, there could be stuff that has been happening. Like I haven't been following her and his kind of online activity or journey or tea that closely because since Shahs has been off the air, I've been a little bit like checked out in terms of their like, there's always like online speculation and stuff going on. So for all I know, there could have been red flags that like real like stans and bigger fans who have really followed might have noticed that I didn't. But I will say that, from what I saw on the show and from, even like they did like a podcast and stuff together, which I know doesn't mean anything, but I'm just saying this was a shocking one. And I think this is one that was shocking for a lot of people in the Bravo world and upsetting for a lot of people because I think a lot of us, liked this couple and wished them happiness and success. But unfortunately, it is not happening as of now. There hasn't been anything that's been like leaked or out there that seems suspect or anything, but we will see as time goes on and I'm sure more information will come out. Okay, let's go to some Real Housewives of Potomac news because we, of course, have some updates from the whole like Wendy Eddie of it all, which remains kind of still the biggest story in the Bravo world for sure. Now, since the arrest, Wendy and Eddie have not said anything. They were, silent on social media until recently. Okay, so they've both made sort of their first, I don't know, social media post since the arrest. Okay. So this is what Wendy said. So she posted a picture last weekend, just right ahead of the episode airing, the newest episode of Real Housewives of Potomac. And she posted a picture of herself in her outfit that she was going to be wearing to the Preakness. Because if you didn't see the most recent episode, that was kind of like the storyline was like her and Kierna were both hosting Preakness sort of events. And there was a little bit of conflict surrounding the two of them. Anyways, long story short, she posted a picture of herself like posing in her outfit. And it says in the caption, "And through it all, God remains faithful. Thank you for the outpouring of love, support, and prayers for myself, and most importantly, my family during this time. We are forever grateful." And then she has a little praying hands emoji. And then it says, "Tune into Bravo TV for a new episode of RHOP." Okay. So, there's a lot of support in her comments, I have to say. And I have to say, I also think that a lot of us feel a little like, I don't know, like in limbo about this topic. Like, I think when the news first hit, we were all kind of just shaken by it and like, oh my God, this is so out of character. Like, this is not what we would expect from Wendy and Eddie. Like, they're the last two we would expect this to happen to. Like, I think that was, the initial shock. And then I think a lot of us are starting to like look for clues and, what's it called? Hindsight is 2020. And we were all doing the retrospect thing where we were like, well, there was maybe this, there was maybe that, kind of seeing some things. But, I think there's still a lot of support for Wendy and Eddie in the sense of like, people are like, well, it's not like it's a crime against an insurance company. Like, it's not like they're like Jen Shah or something scamming old people or whatever. I think there's a little bit of that. And then I think there's also a little bit of like, the Bible verses, because then Eddie had like a Bible verse in his. So people are kind of like, okay, guys, like, let's like, why are we bringing like God and Jesus into this? Like, like you scam the insurance money so you could maybe live a little bit outside or above your means, or to look a certain way. Like, why are we making this about religion? Like, those are kind of the two responses that people have. I'm sort of both of those camps. Like, there's a part of me that's like, I don't think this is like the crime of the century or anything. For me, the part about it that's like kind of engaging and entertaining is that it's so shocking in terms of like who I thought Wendy was and the way that she's always portrayed herself. For me, that's the part that's the most like wow, and I'm also interested to know if there were other things like spending outside of means that maybe her cast knew about and stuff that I would be interested to learn more about that. In terms of the whole, like, okay, we're like bringing God into it and all that. Like, I understand why people are like, come on, guys. Like, people are making lots of funny memes too of like, Nene being like, now, why am I in it? Except saying that like Jesus is like, why am I in it kind of thing. So, I get it. So Eddie he posted a picture of his family. And he said, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him and he will make your paths straight. Proverbs 3:5-6. Okay. So yeah, that's Eddie's post. All that being said, I don't know what else you can post. Like, what else is there to say? Like, you don't want to say anything to like incriminate yourself. You don't want to say like, I'm innocent, and then later you're taking a plea deal or something. That would be stupid. You don't want to look like Karen. You also, have to be careful because this is a legal thing. So there is the other option though. There is, door number 3, which is say nothing. But I do think that Wendy might be contractually obligated to post about the show. So that could be why she posted the Preakness outfit and she has to say something. So yeah, so that could be that. I mean, I don't think Eddie needed to post anything, but maybe he was just doing it because Wendy was doing it. Like, I don't know, like this was probably like a strategy to just, and I think people do that when they get in trouble. They lean into like the religion thing or the God spirituality thing to try and sort of imply that like, like I made a mistake, but I'm not like a morally corrupt person. I'm not the morally corrupt Faye Resnick. No, I'm just joking, but I'm not like a morally corrupt person. And, I'm looking for forgiveness, but you don't want to say like a forgiveness passage from the Bible because then you're admitting guilt. Like, it's a fine line to walk. Okay. So Andy was interviewed on the street about this, and he was asked about like, filming and like, is Wendy going to be filming? Is she doing scenes right now? Like, what is going on, basically? Andy kind of hints. He said she's, quote, doing her own thing. So it kind of sounds like maybe, I don't know, like maybe she's not taking part in the pickup filming of RHOP. I'm not sure exactly. He doesn't give a lot of details. The only thing that he says is just, doing her own thing. And he says he loves Wendy, he loves Eddie, he loves their family, thinks she's a great housewife, and that, he's as shocked as all of us. He didn't know anything until he saw the TMZ post and, wishes them the best. And then, PR kind of answer. I am replacing all my underwear ASAP because I have found my perfect versatile underwear that I'm obsessed with. The boy short and the full brief from the Skims Fits Everybody collection. I've been wearing Skims for a few months now and it has solved my bunching problems. Usually I wear thongs during the day because honestly, I've never had a full brief underwear that fit well before, that aren't constricting, but also stay in place and don't bunch when I have pants on. Listen, I love a thong, but sometimes you just gotta wear a full brief, okay? like if you have your period or something. And the Fits Everybody full brief and boy short, they both do the trick, okay? The fabric is so comfortable, it just melts onto your skin, and it's low profile under your pants. It's like I'm wearing nothing. I forget I'm even wearing them. No adjusting during the day at all. So shop Skims Fits Everybody collection at skims.com. After you place your order, be sure to let them know I sent you. Select podcast in the survey and be sure to select my show in the drop-down menu that follows. Okay, guys, I know it's October, but let's be honest, the holidays are coming and they sneak up fast. One minute you're buying Halloween candy, and the next is December 23rd, and you still have 7 gifts to buy. But not to worry, because it's fun to get started early, an excuse to shop, right? And Uncommon Goods makes holiday shopping stress free and joyful with thousands of one of a kind gifts you can't find anywhere else. I love Uncommon Goods because I'm getting really tired of buying people the same like 5 gifts and gift cards over and over again. I love gift giving. I'm a big holiday person and I want it to be really special. So I'll tell you guys what I got. So my husband is a huge football fan and his team is the Detroit Lions, and they had so much unique NFL stuff. So I got him these Detroit Lions football helmet coasters. They're so nice. They look wooden and hand carved, and I know that this is one football gift that he will have not seen anywhere else. And the best part is, with every purchase you make at Uncommon Goods, they give back $1 to a nonprofit partner of your choice. They've donated more than $3 million to date. So shop early, have fun, and cross some names off your list today. To get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/Bravo Papers. That's uncommongoods.com/Bravo Papers for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods. We're all out of the ordinary. Okay. Now there are some updates in the actual like handling of the case. Oh yeah, sorry. But one thing I did want to say about Wendy's Instagram post before I go to the next thing, because I forgot, is that Stacy commented on it, Miss Still I Rise herself, and said, "Love you." And then Wendy wrote back and said, "Thank you for being a true friend and sister. I love you." So, okay. I didn't know that Stacy and Wendy were like in that place, but maybe they are because, from what I'm seeing kind of on these first few episodes of Potomac, and I acknowledge that these episodes are like almost a year old in terms of like when they were filmed and whatnot and put together and all that kind of stuff. So I get it. Things change. But yeah, it's not like the two of them are like besties and are so close. And if anything, it kind of seems like, Wendy's in the camp of like asking questions of Stacy and sort of being like, what's the truth? And like on that side of like, are you a liar? Are you lying about your divorce? But again, this is still early in the season. We have a whole season to play out. And I don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but based on this Instagram interaction, it does seem like maybe Stacy is one who's being supportive, who's not speaking publicly in a derogatory way, such as Ashley, for example, because Ashley's like being all like, we're catching melodies, not felonies, and all this kind of stuff. So, Ashley's really like relishing in, she's really like relishing in somebody else's downfall or somebody else's pain. So I think people have been critical of that, of course, including myself, because Ashley's had her own shit in the media. So it's kind of like, who are you to talk, right? Okay, so, and people are just saying like it's not like a classy way to address it. Okay. So, but speaking of that and like classy way, Kierna was on Watch What Happens Live and she was asked about it. And she said she feels sad and she did say disappointed. So, as much as like, a lot of people were commenting that they felt like this was like a good response and that it was classy and all that, I do think saying disappointed is a little like low key kind of a dig, because it's kind of like, I thought higher of you and you disappointed me. And, it's almost like worse than saying you're upset or angry, because, it's like when your parents are like, well, we're not angry, we're just disappointed. Like it's like the worst thing. But she doesn't like go into detail. Like she's not like giving us like tea or anything. And she doesn't seem like happy about it or like she's relishing in it or anything. She just says that she feels sad and disappointed, but mostly just sad, and her thoughts and prayers are with Wendy and her family, and that's pretty much it. And I think that's really like, what else can you say unless you're going to be, you know, like Ashley and be completely messy. She also says that her issue with Wendy is really an off-camera issue. She says they weren't, she has asked to clarify, because I think in this most recent episode, well, I know in this most recent episode, Kierna's coming off as a little like just kind of try hard and a little like she doesn't know what her issue is, or it feels like she can't pinpoint it, or that she's not explaining it well. And I think it's leaving a lot of people with like, okay, Kierna, you're like trying too hard here to have a beef with Wendy. But she explains that basically the off-camera and on-camera behavior is different. And that, when she's building a friendship with someone, she has like certain expectations of what that means off camera, and that it's just not being done. And then when the camera comes on, Wendy's like, and Kierna's like, I can't be fake and just be like, hey girl, and like pretend that we're friends, because that's not how it is, right? So I think that was her explanation, which I do get what she's saying, but I still think it's a little bit of a reach, only because Wendy can be an asshole. Yes, that is true. I've seen that. I think a lot of us have seen that. She can be, right? But, and I'm sure they can all be kind of different off and on camera. But one thing I will say is that she's also like a coworker. Coworker friends, and we're breaking the fourth wall a bit here, but they're not the same as like friends. So to just give Wendy a little bit of grace here, I do think that maybe Kierna's expectations are too high. I don't know. But again, there could be like things happening off camera that Kierna's not going into detail with that could make this much more black and white. So I guess we'll have to see. Meanwhile, Wendy is accusing police of an illegal arrest over the fraud charges. So yeah, so we're getting some response from her and Eddie in terms of what's going on with this case. So basically, Wendy is saying that she was the victim of an illegal arrest, and she's fighting her fraud charges in Maryland court. So on October 17th, Wendy's lawyer filed court documents demanding all charges be dismissed due to defects in the charging documents. And yeah, if you know anything about law or anything about, if you're a true crime person, you know that, when mistakes are made, it can lead to charges being dismissed and stuff like that can happen. Again, I'm not an expert on this. I don't know all the details, but I will say that, this is not the first time I've heard of this. So Wendy also requested, sorry, I lost my place, that all evidence be suppressed over an unlawful search or seizure, and that any wire or verbal communications be excluded because of an unlawful interception. Okay, so they're trying this. Like so Wendy and her lawyer are wanting all this, basically a chunk of the evidence, sounds like most of it, excluded, which again would make the DA's, case weak, right? To say the least. Because she said that she was, number one, illegally arrested, her lawyer says, and that any admission statements or confession should be barred because they were unlawfully obtained. Maybe they were. I don't know. I know there are a lot of laws and legalities and stuff that they have to go through in order to, get like admission statements, confessions, recordings, like anything like that. So maybe something was done. Maybe the police made a mistake. Maybe the detectives made a mistake while they were investigating this. And yeah, I mean, that could screw them over. So I guess we'll see. But of course, again, maybe not. And this is just Wendy and Eddie trying something, right? Because maybe they're going to try everything they can to try to get out of this, because why wouldn't they, right? Their lawyer's going to throw probably everything at the wall and see what sticks, right? So, so then they talk about how they were arrested. Now, the last part is that Wendy is also asking that her trial be separated from her co-defendants, and in a separate filing, requested that prosecutors hand over all evidence, witness lists, polygraph results, details on any confidential informants, and copies of official police reports. And Eddie does not currently have a lawyer listed in this case. Okay, so this sounds very much like the Teresa and Joe Giudice case. Like, this is reminding me of that because they were also wanting to be tried and sort of charged separately and then even serve their jail time separately so that, you know, one of them could be with their kids, you know, so that the kids wouldn't be without parents for some time. So I am wondering if they're going down that kind of road, like maybe they sort of, you know, are just trying to prepare for the worst. Like if we do end up going to jail, you know, it's better to be charged separately and then, you know, we can serve our time separately and have somebody with the kids. Maybe it's also the other idea could be that maybe one of them is going to take like a plea deal and kind of, I don't know, like cover for the other one, or at least like, you know, serve all the time so that one of them doesn't have to. Like maybe Eddie is going to kind of take the fall for Wendy so that she can stay out of jail, stay on the show on Potomac and keep making money, you know, and also take care of the kids and stuff. I mean, it sucks for him, but it's, you know, I could see that happening. I really could. I really could see that happening, especially if he's the one who's sort of like, you know, on the email, like asking Wendy what else to claim. And, you know, he could kind of be like, well, I talked her into it. Like, you know, I think they are going to have to come up with some kind of strategy or way to go about this. So, yeah, she is requesting a separate trial. So, yeah, so that they wouldn't be, what's it called, tried together. Okay, so let's go to Real Housewives of Orange County news because there's been a little bit of an update on everyone's favorite story involving Katie, Gretchen, Kiki, and this whole, you know, who said what and who's lying and who's not lying. So Kiki was on Radio Andy, and she says that she wasn't the only one at that lunch with Katie and that there was somebody else there who can confirm Kiki's story and confirm that she's telling the truth. Okay. So basically, what she says is that there was someone else there and that they heard it and they'll confirm it. And then Shannon, because Shannon was also on this radio show episode. So then Shannon kind of pipes in and is like, you know, basically says it makes her mad that Katie was like taking it to that level and saying that there were toxicology reports and, you know, and then Andy's like, well, I think we would have heard if there were toxicology reports because I remember that reunion where we talked about that. And I'm like, yeah, but why are we upset with Katie about that if Gretchen is the one that said it? Like, I was like, I don't understand why Shannon is talking about like being upset with Katie about that. Like, that just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I guess because they're going with the narrative that Katie just made all of this up out of the blue. But at the end of the day, the lie that is being discussed at this point is whether or not Katie told Kiki, not whether or not Gretchen said it or not. Like, I think it's just kind of become, you know, accepted fact that Gretchen said this. Like, I haven't seen very many people who believe that like Katie just made this up completely like out of the clear blue sky and that Gretchen didn't say any of it. Like, it sounds like everybody believes that. I don't know. Like, Andy just kind of jumped off of like what Shannon said, but Shannon was the one who was kind of saying like the toxicology thing is like taking it too far. Okay, so then get mad at Gretchen because Gretchen is the one who said that. And I'm sorry, like, you're never going to convince me that Gretchen didn't say that. Like, do I believe that maybe Katie would lie about like whether she told Kiki or not? Yeah, I do. I believe she would to cover her ass. Yes. But do I believe that she would just make up the story? Like the whole, we went out to dinner. Here's all the people that were there. Slade has been texting my husband. Gretchen said she had to have a toxicology. Like, no, I don't. I don't think that that's a lie. I really don't. And I don't think most reasonable people with a brain and the ability to think critically would believe that Katie made that up out of the clear blue sky as well. So yeah, the whole thing is just stupid and frustrating. And at this point, you know, I think we're all kind of sick of talking about it, but I think we've seen Gretchen lie twice on camera. like fully lie about facts that she said, which is much more than just like making up a lie about whether you told someone a rumor or not, like, and just saying like a yes or no because you're scared you're going to get in trouble. We've seen her fully say, yes, I went to the hospital. Like, that is a much bigger thing. And that's not misspeaking. I'm not buying this misspeaking crap. So yeah. So Shannon was also on Watch What Happens Live. And also I think Kiki Monique needs to just let it go. Okay. Because even if Katie did lie about telling her, no one cares. That's the thing. Like, she keeps saying it till she's blue in the face, and she thinks that if she can prove it and she has evidence and all this kind of stuff, then like suddenly everyone is going to be on her side. It's not about that. It's just about, I think, for most people, and I think some people are on her side, because I think there's always going to be people who are just don't like Katie or whatever the case is, and you know, for them that's like the clincher. But at the end of the day, I think most people understand, you know, why Katie would lie about that. And I think most people think it's not as bad as Gretchen lying about that in the first place and about Tamra doing the naked wasted thing in the first place. So I think that's kind of the thing that she seems to be missing when it comes to all this. So I don't know. Okay. So Shannon was on Watch What Happens Live. She was asked about her friendship with Tamra. She basically says that she's never going to be close friends with her again. She says she can have fun with her on the show, whatever, but at the end of the day, they're just not going to be close friends, and she has to do that for her own well-being. She doesn't agree with Tamra, who says that people have to like bow down to her and that they can't be friends with other people, you know, because Shannon's mad at those people or whatever. She says everyone can be friends with who they want to be friends with. And anybody can be friends with whoever, but her and Jen are genuinely friends, which they might now be genuinely friends, but let's be honest, they're friends because they don't like Tamra. Like, I don't like Shannon. When new people come, it's like Shannon doesn't even notice that they're there until like they do something that annoys her personally. But like, she's not like deliberately or outwardly rude to them on camera that you can see. And it's not like she's like, you know, a bitch to them or hazes them or anything like that. But it is just kind of like she's so wrapped up in her own stuff all the time. It's like, you'll be like, here's this new person. And she'll be like, oh, you're here. And like, it's like you could have been there for 6 months and she still doesn't know your name. Like, that's kind of how it feels with Shannon. And again, I don't think it's necessarily personal against that person. I think it's more just that Shannon is so self-involved and always so wrapped up in her own drama and her own crap. You know, and I think now that like the dust has settled and she doesn't have as much chaos in her life right now, I think she's and that her biggest chaos is kind of Tamra. So I think that has united her and Jen. Now, all that being said, Tamra's a hypocrite. Because Tamra's the same way. She doesn't want people to be friends with the people that she doesn't like either. So I don't know what she's whining about with this. Okay. Meanwhile, on the latest episode, they were talking about these like homophobic posts that Gretchen liked on Instagram, etc. So Gretchen has come out and has said that these are false and that the screenshots are fake. Okay. So let me read you what she said. So she says that they're fake screenshots and that she is a huge supporter of the LGBTQ plus community. Okay. So, you know, these screenshots kind of appeared online. After the season started, it was like maybe like 4 or 5 episodes in. I think it was kind of around when like people started turning on Gretchen that people started floating these around. But Gretchen strongly refutes the allegations. She tells the U.S. Sun that the screenshots are fake, that she firmly stands against any form of hatred and bigotry and has always fully supported the LGBTQ plus community. She told The Sun, it's my understanding that there's a small group of housewife fan sites and blogs passing a story around that I allegedly liked highly offensive posts. This is false. Those are manipulated screenshots meant to cause harm to my reputation and bring attention to themselves. I firmly stand against any form of hatred and bigotry and have always supported the LGBTQ plus community. She said she's heartbroken over these claims and is working with a private investigator. Oh, it's very, it's giving Beverly Hills now with the private investigator to go through the screenshots and see where they originated. A close friend of hers says, having been friends with Gretchen for over 15 years, it's mind-boggling to me how she could ever be accused of hate for the LGBT community and people could believe it. How could people not believe it though? Like, to me, it's like, how can you say, when you're like a MAGA person and you're like all excited, like there's like a video of her getting all excited because someone sent her like a Make America Great Again hat and she's like, takes it out. She's like, oh my God, my Trump hat. So I don't understand, like, it's not such a crazy reach when like that and like I don't get very political on here because it's supposed to be like an escape from all that. This podcast is supposed to help you escape from all that shit. But it's kind of like, well, you have an administration that has historically and recently passed laws, policies, etc., that hurt that community and that take away their rights. So it's not like her friend gaslighting us is just pissing me off. It's not crazy to think that someone who supports that administration and is like a Trumper would also have those beliefs. I'm sorry, it's just not that's not like an insane reach. Like, don't act like we're the crazy people for thinking that or believing that. Again, I don't know if these screenshots are real or not, but I this is just my opinion. I don't have like facts or anything, but in my opinion, I think they're real. And this is not just because I don't like Gretchen. It's because Gretchen over the years, especially, you know, on social media and like since she's been off the show, has shown herself to sort of align with that thought process. Okay. And like I'd have to go back and do some digging through the archives and through Reddit and stuff, but I might, to be honest. But like this is not like such a stretch to me. It's just isn't. Okay. And here's the other thing. Even if they are fake, I still don't like Gretchen and it changes nothing for me. Okay. That's all. That's all I'm going to say. And if they're fake, it doesn't really, you know, for her coworkers, like if they're fake, I'm not going to be thinking that like the coworkers did it or her fellow housewives did it. You know, fake shit is floating around. That is true, but I just don't think that it is. So many people are in the comments saying that they saw that themselves on the post, that they saw that Gretchen liked it. Like so many people have said that. So I'm just like, is every single one of these people lying? And like, I feel like I saw, like, I can't remember which one, but I feel like I saw one that she had liked a post that I thought was crazy at one point. It wasn't that one, though. It was a different one than the one that they're talking about. But it's just like, I don't know. I feel like we're being gaslit here, but we'll see. Okay. Let her do her private investigator. But let me tell you something, with the amount that I've seen Gretchen lie on this show, I'm not over here like just believing Gretchen's word, nor am I over here just taking the word of her quote unquote private investigator who she's paying and could say whatever results they want, just like that freaking polygraph guy and that BS. So it's like none of it really proves anything. Okay. But what I will say is this: Gretchen lies a lot and she's good at it. So, anyways, do with that what you will. Okay. What else do we have from OC? I think that is it for Real Housewives of Orange County. Let's talk about Real Housewives of New Jersey. Something that we haven't talked about in a little bit. The reason is because there's been this ongoing, like, will they, won't they, when it comes to Teresa and Melissa and Joe Gorga. Are they going to have a sit down? Are they like getting back together, quote unquote? Are we getting the band back together, you know? And this has been going on for a while. And I've almost just like haven't been covering it nonstop because it's like every week there's a new sound clip, interview clip from either Gia, Teresa, Melissa, or Joe saying something about how basically, let me just paraphrase, family is always first, never say never. We are willing to talk it out. Time heals all wounds. Those are basically the 4 clips that you could just pull over and over again. And these keep being like updates, and I'm getting so kind of just sick of it. I'm just sick of every like 3 or 4 days a new one comes out of one of them doing an interview, including this week. Now there's a new one. Melissa's sitting down with virtual reality, and she says the same thing. Basically, I'm always family first, like I'm always team family. So yeah, we can have a sit down and talk about it. And basically Gia and Teresa did a couple interviews where they said that. Then I believe that there was another interview that I saw with, I think with Joe Gorga, where he basically said he'd be willing to like reconcile if Teresa apologizes to him. So it has just been like back and forth and back and forth. And then the interviewer on virtual reality was kind of like, well, does this mean the show could come back? And Melissa was like, well, that's up to Bravo. So it looks like Bravo is maybe putting their foot down. I'm getting the impression that Bravo is like, you guys sit down and fix this, or like it's a chop. You're fired, you're done. We'll reboot the show with all new people. That's the impression that I'm getting. Or that just nothing is being said and they're test filming with other new people. And that is scaring Melissa and Teresa. So because of that, Melissa and Teresa are like, okay, we need to just get over our shit and sit down and talk with Joe. And maybe they think that in doing that, that'll kind of sway Bravo or whatever the production company it is to just take both of them back, to be like, look, guys, we made up, we're good. So now, because I'm kind of getting the impression that like if the show goes ahead without them, it's going to be without both of them. I don't think it's going to be one or I know people have been going back and forth for literally a year since the show was canceled, a year and a half, whatever it's been, being like, they're just bringing back Teresa. They're just bringing back Melissa. Teresa's out. Melissa's in. Melissa's out. Teresa's in. Like, it has been like a game of ping pong back and forth with this on social media, on blogs, whatever. And I think the truth of the matter is that they would get rid of maybe both of them. Because and to me, that kind of makes sense. Like, you get rid of both of them, you start fresh. We don't have to even deal with this topic anymore. So, but maybe they would prefer to keep both of them. So maybe Teresa and Melissa kind of know that. So it's like a mutual agreement. Like, we play nice, we get along, we'll pretend we like each other again. I didn't mind those years where Teresa and Melissa pretended they didn't hate each other. Those were some of my favorite years. Like when they kind of teamed up and they went against Kim, what's her name? Kim D. And those were prime years. That was like piece of shit coke horde. Those were years. Those were good years. Those were like where they went to Italy and Teresa threw the glass, and those were good times. Okay. And when you see how they like low key hate each other and then they throw shade in like these like little low key ways, I always enjoyed that. Now, the reason those years were good too is because they did have good cast members coming in and out, and then they lost their way. Once Teresa and Melissa started openly hating each other again and Joe was involved again, that is when it kind of went hayward. So I don't know. I don't know what the fix is. I don't even know what I want anymore. I know I'm sick of hearing about this, and I'm sick of reading the same comments over again. People being like, oh, well, now Teresa's apologizing because she has to. Yeah, they're all doing that. Teresa is saying she's willing to forgive and make up because she does probably feel like her hand is forced. But guess what? Same as Melissa and Joe. They're all the same. Okay. So I know that everybody wants one to be the evil one and one to be, they're both doing the same thing. You think Melissa wants to make up and that she cares about family before she cares about whatever? No, she also just wants to be back on the show. Okay. She's as willing to sit down with Teresa as Teresa's with her. They need each other in some messed up, toxic way at this point. Okay, so we will see what happens with that. But yeah, that's what's going on right now, just to give you the latest update. If there's anything else significant besides them going back and forth with these, sound clips, I'll let you know. Okay, but as of right now, that's really it. All right, let's go to some Real Housewives of Atlanta news. So in a surprising turn of events, Kelly Farrell from Real Housewives of Atlanta hires her co-star, Phaedra Parks, to represent her in court with the battle with her ex. So this is pretty crazy, okay? So number one, he is suing Bravo for defamation over the abuse allegations that Kelly made. He wants $200 million. Let me tell you right now that that's not going to happen. This is such just a waste of time and resources probably for him, because NBC, Bravo, and Universal, like, we're talking a multi-billion-dollar million whatever corporation. We're talking ironclad contracts. They didn't make the claim. Kelly did. Yes, they aired it. But again, if that is her truth, it's very difficult to win like a defamation case. And if she is saying that because it happened to her, like, okay, whatever. Anyways. So, yeah, in the documents, he says that Kelly spread lies on the show in a fabricated storyline, that he abused Kelly and didn't pay back money. But again, it's going to be hard to sue Bravo for that, though. Like they can say, like, we believe the victim, we believe women, like it's not anyways. He says he and Kelly jointly applied for the $420K loan back in 2022 to build out a restaurant called Nana's Chicken and Waffles. He says Kelly spent a bunch of the loan money on her birthday and other unauthorized expenses, and then fabricated a story that he stole the money from her. He says he repaid the loan, but he's still pressing forward with the false claim. But she's still pressing forward, with the false claim that he stole $420K. He also says that, the cast members talked about him being a criminal, an abuser, and a fraud. He says the show's producers continued to broadcast the allegations despite knowing they were false. How would they know that they're false, though? Like, unless they know him like, how can anyone know unless they had seen like loan repayment documents? How would they know that? And then how would they know whether he had been a domestic abuser or not? The only two people who could really know that would be the two of them behind closed doors. Like, it's just crazy to say, like, unless she was like, guys, producers, hi, it's me, Kelly. I'm going to make up this lie. Is that okay? Like, which I highly doubt. So I don't know. I think this is kind of a BS case. So he also wants the court to, so he says it's damaged his personal and professional reputation to the tune of $100 million. Sir, are you worth that much? I really am that, like, are you worth that much that it could even damage you to that much? Or are you just seeing NBC and you see dollar signs and Bravo and dollar signs, so you're suing? That's kind of the impression I'm getting. He also wants the court to dole out an additional 100 million in punitive damage to send the message to the network, bringing the total to a whopping 200 million. Okay, good luck with that. Meanwhile, he is still battling with Kelly in court, I guess over their divorce, etc., and she has now hired Phaedra. We are reliving the Sheree Phaedra storyline, which was like not funny because Sheree's divorce was like crazy and contentious, and her ex was abusive as well and all that kind of stuff, but also iconic and funny because there was that whole thing where like Phaedra messed up in court and it was just, it looked terrible and people still make memes about it and whatever. But I do wonder though, because I'm thinking to myself, why would she hire Phaedra? Like, not that I'm saying Phaedra's not she had a big win in court pretty recently. I remember seeing it in the news, like in the last year or two. But what I will say is, like, not that I'm saying that Phaedra's not competent or anything like that, but it just seems like a strange move to get involved with like a co-star and friend in that way, especially after like what happened with her and Sheree. Like they were kind of like, don't mix friendship and business sort of thing. But I do wonder, my opinion is that she's doing this to stay on the show, because this is like a good storyline, right? Because this is a storyline for Phaedra. It's a storyline for Kelly. It's like, it's going to end up blowing up in both of their faces and they're going to end up arguing about it. So I just think that's got to be what's going on. I just can't think of any other reason, like any other logical reason that this is happening. So we're going with that. Okay, let's do some Salt Lake City news. So as we know, there was that whole thing on Salt Lake City about the soup man, which turns out that it's not soup man, it's suit man. Okay. And fans of Call Her Daddy have dug up this clip. Fans of Call Her Daddy and Salt Lake City, I guess, have pulled up this clip of Meredith on the podcast. And they know that Sophia Franklin used to refer to her ex-boyfriend as Suit Man. Okay. So there was one point where Sophia Franklin claimed that her ex used to hook up with Angie, as in Angie from Salt Lake City. Okay. And then Angie yelled at Meredith about cheating on her husband for years. And, Meredith, like, despite that, she never like threw this out there or anything. But yeah, so this girl, Sophia, says that Angie used to hook up with her ex, who she referred to as Soup Man. So now people are like, that's got to be what Lisa Barlow is referring to. So yeah. Now, I know there was more like updates on that on this week's Salt Lake City, but I haven't watched it yet. So I feel like I'm not the best to comment on it right now, but I will in more detail when I do my recap of Salt Lake City. If you are, by the way, looking for my recaps of the different shows, head to patreon.com/Bravo and Botox, and you can get my bonus episode every week, not every year, every week. Every year would be a really bad deal. Every week where I do a recap of whatever episodes of Bravo shows that are on, and I go through all kind of the main conflicts and give all my thoughts and opinions and perspectives and all that stuff. Meanwhile, as I talked about last week, the women did this whole like Us Weekly cover thing, and they had interviews with all of them. And there were some interesting, more interesting details, and interview clips have come out since then. So, for example, Mary Cosby says that the best thing to come from the show was the friendship she's built with Angie, which makes me very happy to know that they are, in a good place, because these interviews and stuff were recent. She also says that the hardest thing that she went through on the show was when her church was called a cult. She says this rumor was started by none other than Jen Shah. Now, do I believe that Jen Shah would start this rumor? Absolutely. Do I believe that Jen Shah probably had like minions out on the internet, making Reddit posts and commenting, etc.? Yes, absolutely. But do I also believe that fans themselves kind of saw the way the show was edited and kind of saw the way that the church was portrayed and maybe felt a certain way? Yes, I do think so. Because you have to, like, if you go back to those first couple seasons, like the church, it didn't come off looking well, and it in like one of those first scenes where she walks in, like the people in the church, like they seem like legitimately intimidated by her. So I think like all of that didn't really bode well for the image of her church. And I think, her house being like full of designer clothes and all that I think that didn't look great either, because people are kind of like, where is this money coming from? Especially like enough money to buy all of this is a lot. Right. And it seems like you just have like this little church. So it's like, why do you have so much money from that? And again, I think those are valid questions to ask, maybe even still. But, I think Mary has brought much more to the show since then. And I think that we've seen they portrayed her at the start in a very one-dimensional way. It was like she was like this kooky lady who had a church, and it seemed like, she was running this church to just suck money out of people. That was kind of like the portrayal that we had. Now she's been portrayed in a much more complex, dynamic way where we've seen all these different sides of her. We've seen much more of her private life and her family life. They've also left her husband off the show, which I think has helped her. Like, let's just be honest, she's got a much better edit now than she did then. And I think she has shown us a different side of herself with the whole thing with her son and his addiction. So I think that's really helped as well. But again, do I think that Jen Shah possibly like planted that seed and then it encouraged people to talk about it more? Yeah, I do think Jen would do that. Like, I can totally see that happening. Okay, so what else do we got? So Lisa, in this interview, denies spending another man's money, as was brought up on the show. She says she doesn't need to. She owns multiple businesses and she makes her own money, guys. She also addresses the civil lawsuit filed against her, saying that the allegations aren't evidence, which I'm sorry, she's right about that. I know people like just hate Lisa, so they just want to be against her no matter what. But anybody can allege, as I've learned from my Patreon subscribers who are lawyers. And I mean, I knew this. It's just one of those things we have to remind ourselves. Anybody can allege anything in a civil lawsuit. That doesn't make it fact. Okay, so we do have to remember that. And Lisa says, Bronwyn is quote unquote committed to retaliation and is just trying to like retaliate against Lisa. Again, I'm assuming for the necklace thing. So, nothing really like groundbreaking or new there, but I think she has a point about allegations aren't evidence. But, it doesn't also mean that there aren't allegations that are worth maybe thinking about or talking about when you're on a housewives show, because at the end of the day, there are texts in those court documents about her borrowing money from this guy. So, I do think it's fair for the women to ask questions about that on the other side. I gave Lisa some grace, but on the other side, there's two sides to every story. Okay, what else we got? So Heather also opened up about her weight loss. Okay. And how it has changed how people see her. So she says she's just as outspoken as she was before, but now that she's thinner, her comments come across as harsher. She adds that when she was heavier, people viewed her as less threatening. Okay, I understand what she's trying to say. However, I think she is the first person I've seen in a long time who's quite frankly making the argument that being thinner is harder. Like, sorry, but she is kind of doing the like, when you're in a larger body, you can get away with so much more. When you're heavy and overweight, you can be a complete bitch and get away with it. Us poor, innocent, skinny girls just never get a break. When you're skinny, everyone just is like, everything you say is harsh. When you're skinny and pretty, it's just really like, it is kind of coming off like that. I know that's not how she means it, but I think this is a bit of a reach. I'm sorry, Heather, but I am sure, like, I think if anything, more forgiveness and lenience and benefit of the doubt is given to women who are thin and beautiful than women who are in larger bodies. And you can be in a larger body and be gorgeous and stunning and beautiful. But at the end of the day, you are still not going to be afforded the same level of forgiveness and like kind of like benefit of the doubt and stuff as if you were thinner. Because our society associates thinness with morality. That's just a fact. I'm sorry. That is why people get mad about people being on Ozempic, because they think, oh, you took the quote unquote shortcut. So you didn't have the willpower and you didn't have the, the presence of mind and to do it the hard way. You're a lazy person and you're a bad person. Like all of that stuff is wrapped up in it. Because our society, especially right now, we went through a short phase of sort of like body positivity, but it seems to be a complete backlash now. And now everyone is obsessed with being super thin again ever since the whole Ozempic thing. So I'm not really like here for listening to Heather cry about how like everyone is so much meaner to her because she's thin or something. Like just F off with that. Like you're just being annoying. And then the other thing is like, you've also changed, Heather. And I don't mean physically. Ever since, and we all know when the change happened. It happened right when receipts, proof, timeline, screenshots happen. Okay. Heather always had flaws and she was always, had her annoying moments. And to be honest, she was being an asshole before she lost the weight. Okay. But there was a little bit of a uptick in someone's ego. After that, her popularity soared. She was like, I'm the star of this show. I'm the HBIC. I'm going to be with the cool girls, what she'd always wanted secretly, right? Like, it's just, you have also changed. So let's not, and people didn't like the way that you kind of bullied Monica off the show. People didn't like the way that that we found out that you kind of threw producers and production under the bus with the whole black eye thing. So yeah. Just enough with the excuses. Now, on the topic of Heather Gay, she is also hosting a Bravo show called Surviving Mormonism. It is a 3-part limited series where they're going to have real stories of secrets and sins. The first episode of the 3-part limited series, Surviving Mormonism with Heather Gay, premieres on November 11th on Bravo. And then all the episodes will be streaming November 12th on Peacock. And they have some clips with people who like went through horrific things in the Mormon church, like abuse and stuff like that. So they're going to be having victims and survivors talking about their experiences. And as much as I just ranted for like 5 minutes about Heather Gay, and I don't like Heather Gay, I don't like want her off the show or anything, but I have to say she's not my favorite on Salt Lake City. That being said, I am kind of interested to watch the show. I'm not going to lie. I'm probably going to watch it. So yeah. See you guys later. See you guys in the comments because I'll be watching along with you. Okay. All right. Do we have anything else for Salt Lake City? I think that's it. Okay. So let's talk about Beverly Hills because we haven't had a ton of Beverly Hills news, but things are heating up a little bit here. Especially with Garcelle, because she has been doing some interviews lately. And it seems like after a little bit of pulling back and a little bit of a break, she's kind of ready to get back into the, I don't know, media circuit. And not that she's been out of the media, but she just hasn't really been talking about housewives. And now she's come back to Watch What Happens Live to do an interview. She's been asked questions about housewives and she's being more candid and kind of open about it and giving us some insight into her leaving and quitting the show. So Garcelle did an interview on The Breakfast Club recently. That one I'm going to go through first because I think that one came first. And she said that basically she left Beverly Hills because it was hurting her spirit, which I think we all kind of knew that. And then she was asked about Erica and Bose on Watch What Happens Live. And kind of like, what is her reaction to how they were? Because like, you remember they were on Watch What Happens Live and Andy asked like how they feel about her leaving. And they both were kind of like, just didn't say anything and made faces. And then Erica was like, did that whole like super cringe, embarrassing, won't he do it thing. And then she basically said mean girl, that it was mean girl behavior. And it's funny because one of the hosts on The Breakfast Club does sort of ask her a couple more housewives related questions and she gets a little bit annoyed for a second. She's not like rude or anything, but she just is kind of like, man, you guys always want to like, I'm moving forward. Don't want to look past. And, but then the woman says to her, and I thought this was a really good sort of rebuttal, but she says to her, like, you were in our living rooms for years. Like you became like, this is a big show and you became like a household name for a lot of people again. And you were like, we felt so personally connected with you because this was not like a Lifetime movie. This was like your real life and who you were. So, it's hard for us to like detach from that. And then you see Garcelle kind of concedes and she's like, no, I understand. And she kind of, because I think I think sometimes, especially when like you're in it, like she's not on the show anymore, but she's still, basking in some of the fruits of the show. And I'm not saying that Garcelle was successful on her own long before the Beverly Hills show. Okay. But I do think that the Beverly Hills show helped to kind of renew her energy, renew her face and her name in pop culture. And I do think it opened up a lot of opportunities. And sometimes, when you're just getting all these opportunities and you're just working and busy, you sort of forget that like maybe I wouldn't be this busy. Like I might have some stuff, but I wouldn't be this crazy busy without this exposure, right? So you could tell she kind of like snaps out of it, is like, no, I understand. So she was also on Watch What Happens Live. And Andy, of course, asks her about all this stuff. And the number one question is like, the friendship with Sutton. What's going on there? She says the friendship with Sutton is completely over. She does say that she looks back on it fondly. She says like, we had like legitimately good times. And she said, we were really there for each other. And then she makes kind of a side comment and she's like, well, I was mostly there for her. But yeah, she says the main thing is that she felt like Sutton didn't have her back at the reunion. And she said the other thing was that after, I guess they had spoken or had a phone call or whatever, and she felt like Sutton didn't take accountability And that was really like kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. Now, she was also asked about would there be any one cast member of Beverly Hills who, if they left, would make her sort of consider returning to the show one day? And she says very quickly, Erika Jayne. And listen, I would love Erika Jayne to leave the show. I think she's like Emily Simpson at this point, in the sense of like her time's up. Like her time has been up for like a couple years, but somehow she's still hanging on. And it's just getting like just very annoying at this point. And I do think that it's just time to wrap it up. I think she's given everything she has to give. And granted, Erika gave way more to Housewives than Emily Simpson, but I'm just saying that they both have stayed past their prime, and I'm just kind of over it. Yeah. So some definite shade thrown at Erika, which we love because she deserves it, because she started it. Let's be honest. Now, Luann de Lesseps was recently asked at one of her shows about the rudest housewives. So on the topic of Erika Jayne, Luann's answer is Erika Jayne and Dorit is not the nicest person either. Yeah, duh. Because these two, ever since, they've been on Beverly Hills and they've, had made it a few seasons, these two have been walking around like their shit doesn't stink. And like they think they are like, the hottest thing since sliced bread. And they just, because their shows like had the highest ratings of the Housewives shows in a while, like they really act like they are all that. And it's like, and like even like Erika, I can a little bit understand because she did have like stands and stuff. And then, the whole thing with like Tom Girardi and stuff like that did kind of make her like the most talked about for a while. But Dorit especially, it's like, who are you, Dorit? Like okay. Like you had some good seasons at the start, but since then you've just been kind of like wah wah. Anyways, all right. So why those two who are just not iconic at all would even be rude to Luann, who is arguably one of the most iconic housewives, is just that's just laughable to me. All right. In other Beverly Hills news, we have a little update with the whole Denise Richards divorce saga. So, after Aaron was arrested, he said that being estranged from his wife, Denise, has been quote unquote rough and that he misses his wife. Okay. So he's doing kind of this interview like outside, like in a parking lot. And you can tell he's sort of like trying to like stay calm, because he's gaslighting her and all of us. And he says, hopefully she can get the help she needs. Okay. Were you not just arrested on like a felony warrant? Okay, because I'm pretty sure that you're the one who needs help. Like this man is scary. Like he is very scary. And like I said it last week and I'll say it again. I hope she has a bodyguard. I hope she has security. I hope she has protection, because this man is like, I think he's like one of the scariest husbands to come out of Housewives in a long time, if maybe ever. Okay. So he's also been accused of threatening her cousin who testified against him about alleged abuse. See, that is like wild. Like he's threatening family members, like people who've been witnesses in the case. So he's being accused of preventing his cousin, sorry, not Denise's cousin, his cousin, Kathleen McAllister, from speaking out about his alleged abuse. So Us Weekly is reporting on this, saying they obtained a copy of the criminal complaint and arrest warrant filed by prosecutors in LA on October 15th. And it shows the 4 felony counts that Aaron was charged with that led to his arrest last Friday, or what led to his arrest on Friday, October 17th at court. Okay, so basically, the district attorney charged Aaron with 2 felony counts related to injuring a spouse and 2 felony counts related to dissuading a witness by force or threat. So that would be his cousin. So I guess he was thinking like it's going to look really bad if someone from my own family is testifying against me, which, yeah, it does look really bad. But that being said, you already look really bad, but still. So he obviously tried to threaten or dissuade his cousin from testifying. Okay. And apparently this cousin used to work with him at the wellness center that he used to have in Malibu. So yeah, prosecutors are saying that he knowingly and maliciously committed an act that was accompanied by force and an express and implied threat of force and violence against McAllister and against Denise. Okay, so there you go. I hope that he's nailed on that. I hope this man goes to prison for the rest of his life. I know that's unlikely considering, just how fucked up our system is, and it just, I don't think it gives enough punishment or significance on domestic violence and these kind of threats and stuff like that. And yeah, so, but I do hope that he goes away for as long as possible and that he can never go near her again, because this guy's crazy. All right, let's go to, we have a little bit more news here before we wrap up. We have a little bit of tea from the Southern Charm / Summer House world, because there are photos floating around of Sally from Southern Charm, Sally Carson, and Summer House's West Wilson. And these are kind of like PDA pics. And now everybody is like, oh my God, they're dating. So it appears that they were on a double date with Emmy and Will from Southern Hospitality. And in these pictures, we have pictures of West licking her being Sally, and Sally sitting on top of him. So yeah, looking pretty cozy, to say the least. So now people are speculating that they're dating. But then there were also these pictures floating around of West on a date with, was it Mia? Yeah, Mia from Southern Hospitality. So there were pictures of the two of them on a date as well, like at a restaurant. It was like kind of like dimly lit and someone got a picture on their phone. So I don't know what's going on. What I do know is that West is living his best, fuckboy life in the Bravo world, which I'm sure is why he didn't want to stay with Sierra from the jump, or is at least part of the reason. And listen, I don't know if him and Sally are actually dating or if it was just like a drunken night out. Like the picture of her like straddling him is like kind of like out on the sidewalk. Like it just looks like drunken antics. And then the picture of him licking her is like one of those like Instagram selfies, and he just like has his tongue out. Like it doesn't mean like they're dating or in a serious relationship. But one thing I will say is if Sally is out there listening, none of these men, him, Craig, like they will not emotionally fulfill you. So I hope she's just having fun and and isn't expecting more than that. Because if she is, her expectations are going to be let down. I'll say that. Okay, our last story for today comes from Gen NYC, because they are filming and they are back for season 2, and I'm very excited. They posted like a TikTok. It was a Gia, Riley, Brooks, and Ariana. They were kind of like dancing around and said, did this little like voiceover from a clip from I think like an old Kardashians clip where they're like, "We're back." Now Ariana Bierman, on the other hand, has also put up this like Instagram video that I have to say it was a little strange, but she says she's clapping back at haters who are questioning her finances post-split from Hudson. So she shows a little bit of her apartment, and she basically says, "This is the apartment I'm living in. I have a roommate. I am paying for it myself. I don't need money from Hudson or whatever." And she's like, for the people who are like on here trying to say like, I don't have any money now that I'm not with Hudson and I can't afford my place, basically F off. And, I'm doing my own thing. I'm paying my rent by myself. We're filming the new season of Next Gen. Now, one thing I have to say is that it's like, I'm with her. I'm with her on her point. Like, I don't even know why people would be speculating on her finances. Like, she wasn't married. Like, they were dating. I'm sure he paid for a lot of stuff. I'm sure he had more money. We all know that. However, she's also like, we know, made her own money. Unfortunately, her mom took a lot of it, especially from her teen years. It doesn't mean she didn't make money since then. Here's the other thing. It doesn't mean that she's like desolate and has nothing. And she does. She has a full-time job. She has a paycheck from a Bravo show. And trust me, it's good. Like, yes, they've only had one season, so I'm sure it's not like a gajillion dollars or anything like that. But even like a starter Bravo paycheck now in 2025 is going to be a decent salary and what many people would be very happy to make. She's fine. She's living with a roommate. She's not living in like a 5-story penthouse. Like, people are just being ridiculous. All that being said, it's a weird video. She seems weird in it. I don't know what's up. I don't know if she says I'm heartbroken. So I think it's just like, it does kind of seem like she's either maybe had a couple drinks or she's just heartbroken and having a meltdown. It's kind of hard to tell. I don't know, but she doesn't seem herself in it. I'll say that. But again, she's going through a breakup. So wish her all the best. And I hope she knows that she doesn't have to explain to people. And I think her explaining it just kind of made it maybe worse. I think she just needs to ignore these trolls online who are being assholes. Anyways, wishing all the best for Ariana out on her own in the big city. That sounded so cheesy. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today for the news, and you are now in the know for everything Bravo. See you next time. Bye. Thanks for listening, everyone. Your support really means everything to me, and this show wouldn't be possible without you, the listeners. So please, if you enjoy the podcast, leave a 5-star rating and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. For more, you can join my Patreon, patreon.com/BravoandBotox. And for $5 a month, you'll get 4 extra podcast episodes a month. You'll also get early releases of Bravo Paper episodes and more. Please also subscribe to my YouTube channel @The Bravo Papers and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, @BravoandBotox and @The Bravo Papers. If you'd like to buy me a coffee, you can at buymeacoffee.com/BravoandBotox. Send your love through some much needed caffeine. And any guest that was on today's episode will be in the show notes, all their social media and contact information. So thank you so much, everyone. Keep overanalyzing Bravo.